FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
If we look at the history of capitalism, the history of market economies, there have only been a short period of 3 decades, the 3 decades after the Great Depression, when the world did not face crisis after crisis. And the reason was that in response to the Great Depression in the United States and in most other countries of the world, there were a set of regulations. Regulatory institutions like the Securities and Exchange Commissions. And these actually worked reasonably well in preventing crises. The result was that, in fact, a mistaken view arose. The view was that markets on their own were efficient, were self-correcting, and in that sense were stable. But in fact, as I've said, the markets worked well in the decades after the Great Depression because we had good regulation. And then, in the 3 decades after deregulation began under Thatcher and in the UK, under Reagan in the United States, there have been crises after crises, more than 100 financial crises around the world. Most of them in developing countries, but some of them in developed countries. We had an SL crisis, Scandinavia had its crisis. And in each case, the financial sector, the banks, were bailed out, as they have been bailed out in this case. But because they were bailed out, they came to believe that the markets were working, because things didn't fall apart. But the reason they didn't fall apart, the reason things didn't get worse and worse, was that governments had to repeatedly come in and save them from themselves. And so you've had bailout after bailout. Most of these bailouts have names of countries: Korea, Indonesia, Thailand, Argentina, Brazil, Russia. I could go on. It's a long list. But actually, these are not bailouts of countries. These were bailouts of banks, of the financial system, who had not performed their key role of ascertaining creditworthiness and lent money beyond people's ability to repay. And when they couldn't repay, governments came to the rescue.